signals an initiative.
Recording in progress.
Signals initiative and analytical capability. And these are the attributes that employers are seeking in the marketplace. Okay, so my former students, Ethan Akimoto, right there. Peter Vartanian, he's not here with us, he's in DC doing an internship, and Matthew Geiger, right here. We got together and we formed the Menger Institute last year. Okay, we haven't, so we've been 1 year around. It's a young institute. They helped me found the Menger Institute for Market Economics. Also, I would like to say that we are grateful and indebted to our first benefactor, Dr. James Lawson, who gave us unconditional injections, that's what he calls them, right? Money, dollar signs, that facilitated the establishment of the Menger Institute. What is our story? Richard Dawkins, the author of The Selfish Gene, he said that human beings are naked apes. So we're just apes, we don't have fur, we're naked. Okay, but we are intelligent. We have higher cognitive capacity. So our story is the story of the naked ape that goes through life. So the naked ape or human beings are guided by our nature. We have a nature, nomological features, essentialist features. We'll talk about it later on. So we're guided by our human nature, our innate nature, and we are situated in the state of nature and the external environment. So the naked ape enters society not by force, by decree. You didn't come to the classroom. You don't enter society by force or by decree, but you enter society because it benefits you. Okay, you integrate yourself into the marketplace. We call it a market economy. You specialize and you trade so that you could pursue your chosen ends. These ends are your goals, your preferences, and they are subjective to you. There is no objective measure of preferences. So this is subjective to the individual. In the marketplace, guided by our nature, right, in the state of nature, the external environment, we act. That's the first axiom of market economics, the axiom of action. We act. We specialize and we trade. We cooperate and sometimes we compete. We call it co-opetition, right? We build institutions to facilitate exchange. So simply stated, economics is the study of exchange, right? So human beings, we enter the marketplace because we benefit from specialization and trade, and we establish institutions that facilitate trade. One such institution is the medium of exchange or monetary institutions. We also create insurance and assurance mechanisms, right? So we can verify the quality and the safety of the products and guarantee our exchanges. We also established arbitration and mediation institutions to facilitate exchange. And we also established defense agencies or defense and security providers to protect our lives from property and protect our contracts. So the naked ape navigates in the marketplace. The marketplace is angular, it's not linear, right? It has complexities. And we discover that centralized authority, the system that we have today, centralized authority, what we call political democracy, or including the natural rights ideologies that dominate mainstream academia today, are ineffective. Not only they are ineffective, but they are also violations of our very nature. We find instead that a market society rooted in voluntary exchange produces harmony, peace, and prosperity. Quick diagram of the student representations by country. Today, right now, we have maybe 7, 8 students. Few more are coming tomorrow, later on today. But these are the students that are joining us via Zoom right now. Okay, we have 20 students joining us. We have 20 students joining us from the United States. Mustard, Zimbabwe. We have 3 students. We have 2 students from Colombia. We have 3 students from Spain. We have 1 student from India. We have 2 students from Venezuela. We have 3 students from Peru, Brazil, 2 students, Tanzania, 1 student, Turkey, 1 student, Ecuador, 2 students, Guatemala, 1 student, Bolivia, 2 students, Bangladesh, 4 students, Pakistan, 3 students, Ireland, 1 student, and Mozambique, 1 student. So this is our student representation. So the total number of students in this classroom is 55. So we have 7, 8 live in person, and the rest is joining us remotely via Zoom. So they have access to, they'll ask questions. We can hear them, and they can actually type in some questions, right? So anyway, so that's a small introduction. We'll talk more about the Menger Institute, how it was funded later on. But can we move on to the next? Okay, so quick introduction to economics. So the first question is, what is economics? There are many definitions, descriptions of what economics is, but my preferred definition is the following. Economics is the study of humankind's struggle for survival, okay? So economics is the study of humankind's struggle for survival. Why is it a struggle? Why do we struggle to survive? German. Why is it a struggle?
We struggle because we have limited resources.
We have limited resources, right? And what is the smallest or the most limited resource that we have? What is the most important resource?
Time.
Time, right? We're mortal. Human beings are mortal. So we have limited resources. We have limited time to attain our goals, our desires. So that's why I call it economics is the study of humankind's struggles for survival. I like this definition more than the rest of the definitions I've seen in my life as an academician, because this type of definition is interdisciplinary, right? It integrates sociology, psychology, philosophy, anthropology, right? So it's a more interdisciplinary, more all-encompassing definition. It's a struggle for survival. Economics investigates how markets coordinate exchanges. We're going to coordinate exchanges among self-interested market participants to bring about market harmony and prosperity. So economics investigates how markets coordinate exchanges among self-interested. Why are we self-interested? Why am I calling human beings self-interested? What happened to altruistic behavior, helping one another? So what does it mean, self-interest? How do we define self-interest in this setting? Self-interest is that we're motivated by our own self-interest. That means every action must be gainful. So within self-interest, right, altruistic behavior is embedded in your self-interest. So when you help someone, right, and we do help human beings, we help one another, but we do it for ourselves. Okay, we do it because we get something called a warm glow, the tingle, the feelings of, you feel good, the tingling of your body. We call it warm glow. Actually, biologically, your body releases endorphins, like the chemicals that gives you happiness. And also, we're motivated to help one another because of something called cold flow. And what is cold flow? The feeling of anxiety and shortness of breath, and your heartbeat rises when you don't help someone who's in need, right? So we have a biological, we are predetermined innately, biologically, to help one another. So when we're helping one another, it's not just because I want to help you, it's just because it helps me. So the self-interest embedded in our self-interest is all kinds of altruistic behavior motivated by the duality of cold flow and the warm glow. So, but nevertheless, we are always self-interested. Human beings never take an action that's not gainful to the human being, okay? Whether it's self-sacrifice, climbing Mount Everest, every action must be gainful. So what is our starting point? So we're going to start for the next 4, 5 months, 6 months, we're going to study human action, okay? The human being who enters the marketplace, the difficult angular, right, difficulty of life. The human being will navigate, the naked ape will navigate life to attain the goals. But what is our starting point? Well, our starting point is that human beings act. So we start from the axiom of action. This is an undeniable truth. Human beings cannot not act. You cannot say, I'm not acting, okay? So if you attempt to deny it, you end up verifying the axiom of action. So human beings act, okay? We cannot not act. Obviously, when I talk about human action, I don't mean knee-jerk reaction or sleepwalking, right? That's not action, right? I'm talking about purposeful action, and then we'll get to it shortly. So human action, so the first fundamental principle upon which all other economic principles are founded is the axiom of action. Human action is the driving force behind all economic activities. So economics is the science that traces the implications of human action. So the human being, motivated by their self-interest, they enter society to specialize and trade, right? So specialization and trade, building institutions that facilitate exchange, all of these are actions, okay? So it is the science that traces the implications of human action. Some of the characteristics of human action, as I mentioned, human action is innate, it is biological, it's an undeniable fact, truth. All humans are pre-wired to act. In other words, an individual cannot not act. Okay, human action is axiomatic. The word axiomatic means it is innately true. I don't need data analysis. I don't need observation. It's via reflection in your head. You know that you're acting. Okay, I don't need to observe it. I know it from within me. That's what axiomatic means. So human action is axiomatic in the sense that it is a basic assumption about the nature of humans, which does not need further justification or proof within its system. So that's our foundations, that human beings act. But when we act, how do we act? When you wake up in the morning, you just start walking in any direction, or you do what? You have, every action has a goal, a purpose. It has purpose. Human action is purposeful. I've never seen a human being just waking up and going in any like. So when you have a purpose, but when you have a purpose, you also have preferences, because we have many goals. You want to go to the movies, you want to go to the library, you want to go to a basketball game. So there are many preferences. So when we act with a purpose. We want to attain a goal, but then we have to rank our goals. We have goal number 1, goal number 2, goal number 3, right? So now ranking comes into play. Now, in order to get to your goal, what do we do? So imagine I want to attain a goal. I want to take a plane. I want to fly to Europe. How do I get there? Well, we use means, resources. We need money. So in order to get the tickets so you can attain your goal, you enter the marketplace and you specialize in goods and services that you produce, and you exchange these goods and services. Okay? So, so it is purposeful behavior to achieve specific goals. It is not random. It is always directed towards an outcome. Every action attempts to satisfy a subjective preference. So your goal is subjective to you, okay? I may not like it. I may think it's a bad goal, good goal, right? But they're subjective to you. So we don't attempt to explain subjective human preferences. We respect those subjective preferences. So the primary goal of human action is therefore to maintain, but we know what is the primary goal, to maintain physical and psychological stability. Your ultimate goal is survival. Okay, survival. That means you need the energies of life. Once you get those energies, then you can have your movies, then you can go to the basketball game, you can buy your shoes, traveling, etc. But fundamental primary goals are physical and psychological stability, aligning with our genetic predispositions for survival. We're going to talk a lot about how genetics, biology affects human action. Okay, we are genetically predisposed to survive. Okay, it's not like, oh, I want to survive. We just we just react to it. It's within our nature, genetic disposition. Only individuals act. This is very important. In economics, as a free market economist, I cannot say France attacked Germany. That just doesn't make sense. Entities, groups don't act. Only individuals act. So as an economist, we have to trace every action, every aggregated variable, down all the way to individual level activity. Otherwise, it would be nonsensical. So in order to understand social phenomena and aggregate variables, such as whether it's inequality or social justice or poverty or GDP, gross domestic product, none of these aggregate statistics have any value. They're worthless aggregated statistics. They would only have value if you are able to trace it down to individual level action and individual level preferences. Society as an abstract doesn't exist, okay? It doesn't possess independent agency. It doesn't act or the ability to act. Instead, it is the sum of individual actions and interactions. We will study society, right? But if you want to investigate economic phenomena or interaction, it's not a societal phenomena, but it is individual phenomena. So economics is not the study of aggregates. It does not study society as an entity per se, but how and why individuals congregate together, they specialize, they trade to bring about a market society. Only individuals feel pain, happiness, love, and betrayal. Thus, only individuals reason and act. So actions and preferences are therefore singular and subjective. Okay, so these are some characteristics, human action, and then we're going to utilize them throughout the course, right? So this will be important, for example, to criticize a department at most universities, which is social justice department. We have at the previous institution of mine, we had a department called social justice and critical thinking. And my question is, what's social about justice? Why not private justice or individual justice? Why are we socializing everything? Private justice, each person experiences justice differently. If a person comes and slaps all of us, we react differently. You might punch him back, I might turn the other cheek. Some people might, want monetary damage. So different people have different feelings, different betrayal, different feelings of happiness and pain, right? So let's start with individual justice rather than aggregate justice. And we're going to find out the implications of all these characteristics that I'm introducing right now throughout the course. Only individuals possess preferences. Okay? Society doesn't possess, only individuals have preferences. Human action implied, we call this the role of knowledge. Only you know what your preferences are. I can't impose a preference on you. Okay? I can't impose a preference on you. Only individuals possess preferences. Human action implies that only individuals possess these preferences, and their preferences are widely dispersed across the marketplace. We all have preferences. Apples or fruits in the fruit market, you all have preferences. How do I know? If a centralized authority, how do I know what your preferences are? Is there any mechanism for me to aggregate your preferences? There's millions of people in the United States, 100 million people. How do I aggregate your preferences? Is there a mechanism of aggregation, your preferences? Are you going to go every morning and click a button, you say, I want apples, bananas, watermelon, right? So how do I aggregate your preferences in the marketplace? Because it's subjective, okay? We're going to find out there's a market mechanism for aggregation, and it is the price mechanism, okay? We're going to find out. So preferences are dispersed across the marketplace. Each person has unique knowledge of their preferences, their circumstances, and the value systems that they have. No central authority can know subjective preferences, okay? So governments, when they take policy makers, when you go and vote, that doesn't reflect your preferences. Because when you vote, you don't have a skin in the game, okay? Because when you vote, you're not paying for it. You can say a firework brings me $1 million worth of satisfaction or happiness. But when I say pay for it, then you're not going to. So preferences are only revealed, Rothbard tells us, at the moment of action. I only know that you like fireworks when you're actually paying for it, not by voting, okay? So preferences are revealed at the moment of action, and they are only innate to the individual. So only individuals can declare their preferences, and synchronization between individuals can only be achieved through market signals. The only way I can aggregate your preferences is the price mechanism. When most of you go and buy red apples, then the market realizes that there is more demand for red apples than green apples, such as prices. And we don't need central planning. We're going to talk about central planning later on. Human action implies trade-offs. If you remember, when you wake up in the morning, you have many goals. You have to act. You cannot not act. Your action is purposeful. You don't just go in any direction. So you rank your goals, right? Apples, going to the movies. So, but every time you pick a goal, you pick a preference, you're trading off another preference, right? So if when you come to the classroom today, you're going to miss out going to a basketball game, right? So there is a trade-off. Every action involves a trade-off. You give up something to get something. Individuals must allocate scarce resources in the best way that maximizes their satisfaction. We have limited time. You come to the classroom, you're going to have to let go of the movie theater, right? So it's a trade-off. And this trade-off in economics, we call it the opportunity cost, okay? So the opportunity cost is what you give up to get something. So human action implies trade-off. Human action also implies time and uncertainty. Action takes place in time. It's not static, it is dynamic. Action takes place in time. And whenever there is time in action, then we have something called uncertainty. I'm acting, but action is taking place in time, but I don't know the future outcome. So there's uncertainty in the outcome of my actions. Okay, I'm trying to go to the movie theaters. I may get lost. Maybe I don't have the means. Maybe the movie theater blew up the day before, right? So there's uncertainties in your action because action takes place in time. So therefore, therefore, human action implies a temporal dimension. So there is a time dimension to our action. Individuals, when they're making their decision in time, then they are under the threat of risk. Okay, and if time permits, we can talk about the difference between risk and uncertainty. Risk, I know the distribution. It's like a roulette table, right? So imagine the double zeros don't exist. So you have 1 out of 36 chance to hit the number that you picked, right? That's the risk that you're taking. Uncertainty is unknown. Okay, it doesn't have a distribution. Risk has a distribution. Uncertainty does not have a distribution. It's unknown. That's why I'm saying that human action takes place in a temporal dimension when there is uncertainty. So most of our decisions are based on expectations. Okay, you didn't know what to expect when you came to the classroom today. When you specialize, you don't know if what you're producing has any value in the marketplace. Okay, so it's all based on expectations about the future and involved risk and uncertainty. Human action also implies social cooperation. If you remember, human action, when I act, I cannot act randomly. When you wake up in the morning, you think every action has a purpose. But most of the purposeful action, most of the goals, you have a ranking of goals. Goal number 1, you have a ranking, and you pick goal number 1. But to get there, you have to do what? You cannot get there on your own. You need resources. To get those resources, right, you have to do what? You have to enter the marketplace. So social cooperation is a direct implication of human action. So human beings cannot not act, and that leads us to entering society and exchanging. So human action, a direct implication is social cooperation. And we're going to talk about how that social cooperation, as Frederick Hayek says, it leads to spontaneous order, okay? So this is a brief introduction. We'll spend the rest of the semester talking about, how human action leads to spontaneous order. The individual actions of millions of self-interested people enter the marketplace. And then we get harmony at the end. We get prosperity, and we get peace, and we get order. How does that happen? Okay, Adam Smith, classical economist Adam Smith, 1776, in his book, The Wealth of Nations, he says, self-interested people, when they enter the market and do what's best for them, they end up doing what's best for society as a whole, as if guided by an invisible hand. Okay, so think about it for a moment. Millions of self-interested people entering the marketplace, doing what's best for them, they end up benefiting everyone in society as if guided by an invisible hand. You know what is the purpose of the Menger Institute and this course? To detangle the complexities of the invisible hand. It's not going to be, I'm going to turn this invisible hand into a visible hand. I'm going to show you exactly how these self-interested individuals interacting in the marketplace leads to harmony. Okay, so we're going to peel the complexities of interactions, and we're going to turn this invisible hand into a visible hand. Okay, then with certainty we can say this interaction, free markets, individuals interacting with one another, it leads to interconnectedness, to interdependence that emerges without the need of central planning. Why do we become interdependent and interconnected? What is the foundations of interdependentness and interconnectedness? What binds us together? The division of labor. The division of labor binds us together. An individual on your own, you can't produce all the goods and services that you're consuming. So you enter society, you produce shoes. Then you exchange your shoes for t-shirts, for jackets, for food, security, transportation, right? So individuals are interconnected and interdependent, not because we like one another. Trust me, if there is no division of labor, we'll be at each other's throat, we'll be killing one another, because there's no benefit for me to be interacting with you. Except your family, which is, we call it the economics, right? Except your family, the bond could be sexual or, procreation purposes. But outside of your household, we call the outside of your household, there's a name for it. It's called the, louder? Catalaxy. The catalaxy is the environment outside of your household. We're in the catalaxy, right? We don't know one another. We just met today, several of you, right? So what binds us together is the division of labor. Because you're going to do something you're better at, I'm going to do something I'm better at, and then we're going to meet in the marketplace and we're going to trade with one another. This division of labor is unique to human beings. The depth of it. Animal kingdom, they have limited division of labor. The bees there's the queen bee, and then there are the drones and the worker bees, limited division of labor. Plant kingdom, limited. But human beings, it's unlimited. 100 years ago, a doctor meant a doctor. Today, we have specialized doctors, and it's getting deeper and deeper. And the deeper the division of labor gets, the more and more we become interconnected and interdependent. And that interdependentness and interconnectedness leads to peace, harmony, and prosperity. That's the foundation of a market economy. The market economy is a product of individual human actions that will lead to order. Self-interest, we talked about it. It takes place in a world of scarcity. We talked about biologist Richard Dawkins, the book Selfish Gene. He posits that successful genes exhibit ruthless selfishness. So he actually traces selfishness to the genes. The genes are actually competing for stability within your body. Okay, the genes, they want to be passed on from one generation to another generation. They found human beings as being hosts. And they created procreation as a pleasurable activity. To procreate, it's a pleasurable act. They make sure that you procreate because you want to have pleasure, right? So you end up procreating. So they made sure that procreation is a pleasurable activity because they want to keep, So they're very selfish. These genes are very selfish. And this is a predominant quality. He further, Richard Dawkins concludes that this genetic selfishness manifests selfish behavior in individuals. So the selfish genes are actually leading us to be self-interested. Our ultimate goal in life is survival. We're going to talk about parents sacrificing their life for their kids or for their nation, for some causes. All of that is embedded in your self-interest, because then we can argue that there is genetic overlap, in particular with your children. Right? Some parents, they just, without thinking, instinctually, you sacrifice your life for your children, right? So, but that doesn't defy this. It actually complements it because of the gene overlap. Then you may sacrifice for your family's brother, parents, then for your tribe. Some people don't want to sacrifice their life for their countrymen, right? All of this has gene overlaps. It can go on to the animal kingdom all the way to the plant kingdom. Sociologist William Sumner, proposes that self-interest is universal across all individuals and all cultures. It's not unique. And all social strata. It is a primordial. Primordial, that means it's innate in us, disposition. No economic agent will voluntarily engage in an action perceived as unprofitable. You would never do an action. You might think in your head you're doing something, it's not gainful to you, you're helping someone, a poor person, still it's self-interest, okay? You might think, you might convince yourself that way, but it is still a self-interested action. as we talked about the duality of the cold flow and the warm glow. Now I'm adding another layer to it, the overlap of your genes. Okay. Every action must be gainful. Every action is continuous, and it underlies non-satiation. So action is continuous. You can't one day wake up, say, I don't want to act. That's an act in itself. If thinking is an act, right, reading, listening to the music, you cannot not act unless you're in a coma or sleeping, or you're always acting. You cannot. It's a curse. You want to think about it. Mises was pessimistic. He said, oh, it's a curse. You have to act. Rothbard was a little bit more optimistic. He said, it's okay. You act to improve your standing, right? You want to get to a better state of affairs. But this action is continuous. Okay, you will never. So because action is continuous, you can never say I'm satiated. Satiation is I'm that's it. I want to stop. I worked hard. I made money. I have a family. I just don't want to do it. It doesn't work that way. Okay. If you climb Mount Everest, that's your goal in life. The next day, you want to go all the way down to the Mariana Trench, right, which is the deepest place in the ocean. So it's not never ending. You cannot stop. Okay, you only stop when we die. Otherwise, it's a continuous. So that's why I'm saying it's non-satiation. We can never be satiated. Okay, I mean, obviously, this could be interpreted into greed, for example. Some people, I would, take this out. I can put greed instead. What is greed? Is wanting more, is doing better. You get an A in one course, you want to get in all the courses. You get a 4.0 GPA in your bachelor's, you want to do it for your PhD program, right? So it's non-satiation. Again, it's a disposition in our human being. So altruistic behavior, while supposedly selfless, is fundamentally motivated by self-interest. So even altruistic behavior is fundamentally motivated by self-interest, often manifesting in psychological satisfaction or a warm glow effect. Another implication, when this naked ape enters the marketplace, right? So the only reason you enter society, not to benefit society, but to benefit yourself. And this always brings me to the quote by President Kennedy, right? Remember what Kennedy said?
Ask not
Ask not
what your country can do for you.
Ask not what your country can do for you, but ask what you can do for your country. The most ridiculous, the stupidest statement I've ever heard in my life. Like, I'm going to enter society to benefit society. Are you crazy? I mean, that's what he's saying. Okay, it's inimical. Inimical, that means it's internally inconsistent statement. I enter society, I benefit everyone, but because it benefits me, the self-interest may lead me. You have subjective preferences. Okay, but it is still, any action that you take is a gainful action. Okay, so it's not helping society. So the individual enters society because of the benefits that you get out of it. Okay. When we enter society, right, we specialize in tasks in which we have a comparative advantage. Comparative advantage is something that I can do better than you, right? So I'm better than you at producing something, or better, the correct definition is the opportunity cost of what I'm producing is lower than the opportunity cost of you producing that product. Okay, if that's true, then I specialize in the product in which I have the lowest cost, opportunity cost, and you specialize in the product that you have the lowest opportunity cost, and then we trade one another. Okay, so some of you will be accountants, some of you will be lawyers. Each individual has a different aptitude, different capabilities. And the more diverse those capabilities and aptitudes are, the more the beneficial exchange will be. We don't want to all have the same strength. Okay? We don't want uniformity. We don't want homogeneity. Most universities, colleges, academia nowadays, that's why we left mainstream academia and we're doing this project, is because they want homogeneity. They want sheeple. They don't want independent thinking people. Okay, it's easier to control when everyone is homogeneous. They are destroying our individualities. Okay, so, but we know the best is for us to be different from one another. The more the difference, the more the interconnectedness, the more interdependence, and then the more harmony and peace will emerge. The division of labor not only benefits the individual, but all market participants. and it helps the emergence of Hayekian decentralized spontaneous order. Okay, so we're going to talk more about the decentralized spontaneous order that emerges in the marketplace. That's another implication of human action. So as you see so far, right, just from the axiom of human action, human beings, they have to act. We cannot not act. But when we act with a purpose, right? And the purpose includes ranking of our goals. But to get to your goal, you have to find out what is the most effective way, because there is time scarcity. Do you drive to your goal? Do you take the plane, airplane, subway? Do you take the bridge? Do you take Uber, right? What's the mechanism for you to achieve your goal? And to attain your goal, it requires resources. To receive those, to have those resources, you have to enter the labor market. You have to specialize and trade so you can get those resources. Think about it as money, right? So that you can attain your goal. So all of this is just a direct implication of human action. So just from one truthful axiom, we're able to deduce other truthful axioms, right? So in conclusion, the science of economics is the study of the individual who enters society and pursue personal subjective ends. We engage in exchanges. We develop market institutions, assurance, insurance companies, money and banking, the stock market, right? All of these market institutions, defense agencies, arbitration mediations providers, right? In order, and property rights ownership systems to protect both personal assets and property. All of these actions are then taken to achieve our desired ends. So I want to conclude that there are some paradigm shift. A paradigm shift is a way of thinking. It's not a two-dimensional, it's a multi-dimensional. It's a shift in your brain that needs to happen, right? So it's like getting out of your two-dimensional world into a three-dimensional alternative. Some of the paradigm shift is our methodology. We're going to find out the method, or we call it epistemology, the study of how we know what we know. Our methodology as free market economists or Austrian economists, okay, we're going to talk about more about Austrian economics. So our methodology is different. We don't use the scientific, the so-called pseudo-scientific method of empiricism, right, and mathematical modeling, or the inductive methodology where from observations you extrapolate theorems. We're going to use a deductive methodology, right, which from axioms that are truthful, we're going to, using valid arguments, we're going to derive other truthful axioms. So the methodology of studying the naked ape, the intelligent naked ape who enters society, motivated by self-interest, guided by his human nature in the state of nature, right? We're going to investigate the implications of his action using the deductive methodology. So methodologically, we are different from mainstream economics. Anarchy and other paradigm shifts. What A stands for absence, archy stands for a ruler. Anarchy is not absence of governance. It's absence of a centralized authority. We're going to find out a decentralized market system, right, will be more aligned with our human nature. And finally, praxeonomy. We're going to talk praxeonomy is a value system that emerges in the market system, okay? We're not going to subscribe to any moral or, most of the dominant is natural rights theory. We're saying we don't want to subscribe to any of these natural right theories or utilitarianism, but we're more aligned with something called praxeonomy, which is a value system that emerges at the moment of action. Okay, so that's another paradigm shift that we hope to introduce to you throughout this semester. With that, I'm going to stop with the first lecture, and then we have two more lectures. I want to talk about, so we talked about human action. I want to talk about the state of nature, right? When the individual enters society, how does society looks like, right? And then we're going to talk about human nature. What was our embedded nature, which I mentioned. So let's take 5 minutes break, and then we come back with the second lecture. Thank you.